You probably find yourself working from home now. Many of us are due to various health-related events that we find ourselves in today. But it's not the end of the world. So we as a software development company are a 100% remote working company already. And so we wanted to offer you some tips and tricks to be and stay productive as a remote worker, especially if this is your first time doing so. So first, make sure you have a routine. Whatever your routine is, try to stick to it. You may find you need to adjust it from time to time, but I'm going to show you mine, having been a remote worker for the better part of 10-15 years. So my routine begins with, I try to wake up early as possible. You also need to take care of your sleeping habits. But from there, I make sure I make the bed every day. And that's not just because I want to be neat. In fact, that's probably not the reason at all for me. But I like to be able to come back at the end of the day, no matter how bad or good my day was, and I have a nicely made bed. It just makes me feel good. Next, get dressed. Yeah, it would be tempting to be in your pajamas, and I'm not going to kid you, sometimes I'm in my pajamas, but getting dressed kicks off the rest of my day on a normal day with my normal routine. From there, personally, I like to do some push-ups, get the blood flowing, get my brain going, and then I start hydrating. So I'll have 1 or 2 glasses of water, and for me, I like to take a walk afterwards, and I go to the local coffee shop. So from there, get a coffee or tea, but all the while, I'm listening to podcasts or news or whatever the thing is to get me started for the day, to know what I need to get done. I don't start working yet. This is all about me. Now we start working. We get back to the house, we start working when we take our breaks. Now, if you're listening to this during this coronavirus time period, you of course want to keep your distance from folks that you don't know. And well, even though folks you do know, you don't know who has it. So when you are doing that walk, just be aware of that. So work and take breaks. The next thing is lunch. Some of us eat lunch, some of us don't. I personally, you don't see breakfast in here, but I put lunch in here. I personally have a different eating habit, so I put that in there for your benefit. And then you have your work after lunch. Make sure you take breaks again. And then 100% stop working. Whatever you do, you need to have a cutoff time. So make sure you stop working whenever that time period is. So maybe you are working from 9 to 5. Maybe you're working from 8 to 6. Whatever that time period is, just make sure it's not 8 to 8. And when the time comes, you stop working. And then you have a routine afterwards. Maybe you're working out. Maybe you're doing something else. Whatever your thing is, maybe it's walking the dog. Make sure you have a stopping routine as well as your daily routine with work. Next, we're going to talk about the workspace. If at all possible, have a dedicated area that's only for work. When you're sitting there, when you're doing your thing, that is just for work. It's not for bills, it's not for watching videos, it's not for anything else. It's just for work. It gets your head all set on that particular task. Set ground rules. If you're living with people, make sure they know that when I'm sitting here, when I'm doing my thing, this is only for work. If you see this going on, please don't, barge in or what have you. If the door's shut, the door's shut. Whatever the ground rules are, make sure you set them and everybody is on the same page. In your dedicated workspace, avoid doing anything personal there. That includes watching YouTube on your breaks or anything like that. Try to not do anything personal. Again, it's about getting your head right, making sure that you're in the right state of mind. Whenever it's time to work, I'm just doing that thing. I'm making sure I'm as productive as possible in that workspace. And again, have a strict cutoff time. When it's time to end work, do that. You need to be sure that you protect your environment. And that includes your time, and that time might be with your pets and your family, whatever that is. Make sure you have that strict cutoff time and you actually do that. And then in your dedicated workspace, keep it clean. Of course, the obvious things are don't have your papers everywhere and whatnot, but also, you need to keep it clean every now and then. Studies have shown most people don't remember to clean their desk, and so honestly, your keyboard and your desk are one of the most dirtiest things in your office or your home and your home office. So make sure you clean it from time to time. And choose your background noise. Background noise is awesome. Most often, of course, that'd be something like music. whatever it is. I personally like to go into some heavy metal, but you might find some classical or some hip hop, whatever the thing is. Make sure you choose your background noise. In fact, I'll bounce around from different genres depending on what kind of work mode I find myself in. But one thing that is sure is try to avoid television in the background, or videos. That tends to, or movies or anything like that, that tends to very much distract you from what you need to do. And then tasks that would typically take a certain amount of time will end up taking longer for sure. And so, that kind of goes along to maybe you're listening to interviews and podcasts or something that, if you find yourself distracted from those, maybe you have to avoid those while you work. Next, because it's so important, make sure you take breaks. Breaks are incredibly important for work. It doesn't matter if you're working from home or not. Once an hour is the most ideal. Maybe it's, you're doing something and you just need to, get away from it for a second, so that way you can reboot, and maybe on your break you come up with an idea to do something better or do it faster, or do it differently where, maybe it was a bad idea to begin with. Make sure once an hour you try to take a 5 to 10 minute minimum break. You need to get some air. So go outside and stretch your legs. Even in today's environment, with the coronavirus and whatnot, you can go outside. You can go outside and enjoy. Maybe it's a beautiful day. I can see out my window right now. It's a gorgeous day. I'm definitely going to go out there as I render this video for you. Take a quick walk. That walk could be around the block. It could be a little bit longer. Whatever that is, make sure you take a walk. You might be walking the dog. Maybe you need to do a quick chore. Maybe you just finished lunch earlier and you had to rush back to a meeting, and now during your quick break, if you're a developer, maybe it's during a build, you do a quick chore, quick knock out those dishes that you just dirtied, whatever it is, so that way you can come back to an empty counter. One of the great things to do, and there's a lot of research behind this, is maybe watching a pet or nature video. Again, not at your workspace, but one of these things, these tend to recharge people for the same reason that going outside does. Getting your head outside of work and then coming back to it. It's just a reset. Yes, food is something that's always on our mind. And when you're working from home or you're just at home, this tends to be something that we kind of get out of control with. So be conscious of your snacks and snacking. So one of the ways I learned to do this for myself, I had no idea where I was with this until I started tracking it. And so one of the things I found useful for me was I used the MyFitnessPal app, or whatever app you find to do this. You might be surprised at how much you are or are not drinking or eating. So it's a very useful tool for yourself. But in general, while you're working, try to avoid snacking if you can. For one, you're dirtying up your workspace. You're getting those nachos or whatever all over your keyboard, right? But beyond that, you want to avoid snacking because when you're working and snacking, you very quickly find that, oh my goodness, I just finished that whole bag of chips. So try to avoid snacking while you're working if you can. Stay hydrated. It's amazing how dehydrated most of us are. So once you start tracking it, just make sure you always have water and you're just constantly sipping your water. There's even nice, water, what do you call it? The water containers that will even be app driven to remind you to drink water, so that way you can set your goals and reach them. So that might be something you might want to look for online. Don't overdo it. Again, that's avoiding the snacking. So, there's a little smiley face there. We all love the snacking. So, just make sure you're conscious of it. That's all. And then have a schedule. So, maybe you are eating all 3 meals of the day or what have you. Or maybe you're on a special diet where you do 5 or 6 meals a day. Whatever it is, have your schedule and try to stick to it. And maybe put that even in your calendar. So that way you don't have to worry about somebody scheduling your lunch out. Software. This is the fun part. We are all remote, so we have to use the software in order to make sure that we're productive. Whatever the software is for your job, you might want to first check with your job to see if any of these things are things that your job has something for already. They might have standards. So the first thing is communication, and this is the #1 part of your environment when you're working from home. Make sure you have a good webcam. So use your camera whenever possible. If you're having a meeting, make sure everybody can see each other. It replicates the working environment as much as possible. And it also makes it something where we're seeing each other instead of hearing a voice. So we're a lot more personable, we're a lot more friendly, and it tends to be something where we have a lot more fun, especially with you might have little toys at your desk, or you get to see where your friend that you've never been to their home but you've seen them at work. Now you get to see the background or the kids running around. It actually is fun. Some of those things are good. It makes it breaks up the monotony of just being at your desk. Some of the software options that you may consider if you don't already have something that you're using, it might be Slack. Slack's a wonderful tool. For video conferencing though, unless you're paying for it, you might find yourself with some limitations, but Slack is a wonderful tool for all kinds of collaboration online. We use that extensively. Join Me is a great online conferencing tool. It's just like GoToMeeting or whatnot. So it's one of those options, including Zoom. So these are just options. You might find one is better than the other for you. Some of them have free options, like the free conference call. So try them. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. You might find that some people in your organization like one tool better than the other. So it's just really up to you as to what you use, including Skype. Personally, I find that the Skype sometimes works less good than other times, but I know some people have a great time and no issues with Skype, so it's still a viable tool for you maybe. Some tips about communication include reboot each morning. Especially when you're working from home, you're using your computer maybe a little bit more often than you would normally be using it, especially if it's maybe your home computer. You don't have a work computer that you brought back. But rebooting once a day at minimum is a great idea. The longer a machine stays on, especially as you go into sleep mode and come back from it, the longer it stays on, and this includes your phone, by the way, but the longer it stays on, the more those little weird quirks happen. So rebooting once a day is a great idea. First thing in the morning especially. You might be sipping on your coffee or whatever while you wait for everything to come back up. When it comes to connecting to meetings, make sure you connect early. You never know when that thing that never happens all of a sudden happens, like your webcam doesn't work, or your microphone's not working, or you can't find your headset. Whatever the thing is, make sure you connect early. 1 to 2 minutes at least is generally pretty good. And it also helps people realize, like, hey, yeah, this person's locked onto it, so it's a good idea. And then block time before and after meetings. This is a great idea because you may have to do things right before or after a meeting in order to prep for the meeting at hand. So it's a great idea whenever somebody blocks a time on your calendar for a meeting, block a little bit of time, like 15 minutes or something before it and after it. The before it might be, I need to reboot before it, I know it already, or that'll be the time where I know I need to go refill my coffee, my tea, my water, or whatever. And then the time after is sometimes meetings just go after. So this prevents people from blocking more time on to be back to back with your current meeting. So this just protects you from everybody else. And when you're not on your webcam, make sure you cover it. This is just a quick security tip. This is a deep or this is one of those black holes that we can go into. But this is just again to protect yourself in this time. So we won't dive into that in this one. If you're interested, we can do a whole new video on that one. When you are on your call, make sure if you have any high bandwidth apps running, make sure you either pause them or close them. So this includes things like Dropbox or OneDrive. Sometimes this might even include Skype or something, or actually, well, Skype too, but I was thinking Slack. But whatever it is, you might want to close some of these apps out. And sometimes it's also because you might need to prevent notifications from coming on your screen. And to that end, a tip that you won't see here is maybe going into presenter mode, especially on Windows. You can go into presenter mode to prevent some of those applications from popping up on your view. Avoid using Wi-Fi if at all possible during these conferences. Wi-Fi tends to be very spotty, especially at home. So if you can be plugged in, please do so. And if you have issues with that, you can always use things like Power over Ethernet or Ethernet over Power, however you'd like to refer to that as, to get a wired connection in a remote part of your home. Use a headset. If you don't already have a setup to where you can have speakers and a microphone running at the same time without an echo, then you definitely want to use a headset. if you find that your environment is low on bandwidth, or if you have to absolutely use Wi-Fi, it might be a good idea for the audio portion for you to call in on your phone. So whether it's your cell phone or what have you, use your phone to call in for the audio, and then you can still maybe show your screen or see the screen and use your camera without having a whole lot of interruption. So it's a nice little trick to kind of save on the bandwidth on your computer. And whenever we are so quick to chat, there's a lot we can do and a lot more we can get done, and a lot of times a lot of that more of the positivity that we can create out of doing a video call instead of chat. So you might do the chat, say, hey, can we do you want to chat real quick? Sure. All right, cool. Can I call you? That's a fantastic way in order to continue with camaraderie and keeping a positive environment with you and your team and your coworkers. If you're on a meeting, please stay muted. People, this is especially for you multitaskers. Multitasking is a whole nother thing where we could go into again a deep dive on that. But we don't want to hear all the typing. That usually that comes over people, or the unexpected trash truck outside your window, or whatever the thing is. Of course you want to unmute when you want to talk, so don't forget that you muted and how to get back to that button. But when you're not speaking, it's a great idea to stay muted for the productivity of the meeting. And then if you find yourself in an environment where you're using multiple types of online conference software, like maybe you have multiple teams or multiple clients or whatever that thing is, if you're moving from one software to another, like let's say you're moving from Zoom to GoToMeeting to Free Conference Call, whatever that looks like, I find that a lot of times these different tools will fight with each other once you've used one. So I find that if I know I'm about to use another one, I'll just reboot real quick before that meeting, which is another reason for blocking out that time. So that way I don't run into issues connecting. The next thing we're going to talk about is time tracking. So time tracking, this isn't like if you're already in a consulting environment, you probably are already doing this. But if you aren't, this is a great way to benefit yourself, right? So this is mostly for your benefit. This isn't necessarily for you to, make sure that you account for all your time for your boss, but you may find that you do that, right? So one of the things that helps you do is validate being a remote worker. If this is your first time doing it and this is new to your company, this is a great way to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Boss, I spent all this time and look how much more productive I was doing this thing. So you could end up creating an environment where remote working at least a couple days a week might become part of the culture, and you could be part of the reason to validate that for the company. So use some time tracking software to track how much time did you spend on this thing. Was it productive? Maybe it wasn't productive, and then for your own benefit you are able to adjust some of your patterns or your routine. So basically, it helps you understand where and how you spend your time. So do review your time when you're doing it, and try to be diligent about it. You might find you even track some of your non-work stuff, so that way, throughout your day, you know how much you did and didn't work and where that went. So this is a great way to do this, and there's lots of software to help you do this. And most of these software applications exist both on your desktop as well as on your phone and other devices. So some tools that you can use, and this is not an all-inclusive list, and by the way, all these tools that I'm showing you, there are alternatives out there, so we're not endorsing any one or the other, and we're not using any kind of like merchant links or anything like that for referrals. So one that's free is called Toggle, and there's another one called Clockify. They're both free, and you might find that you need a more commercial option with that gives you more tools at your disposal. Harvest is one of our favorites that we like, and it gives you a ton of additional features, especially if you're doing some kind of consulting work. But again, try one. Maybe you find you need something else entirely. Whatever works for you. Next is software. In the software category is a VPN, and so you want to make sure that you're at home. And so if you're constantly doing stuff on the internet, all these bots that are out there sniffing traffic, they may find you. Nobody's targeting you, trust me, but these bots just latch onto things that follow certain patterns. And so the more secure the information is for your company, the more VPN becomes something that's necessary. So you definitely want to use a VPN to protect you and your home and the internet traffic that you and your loved ones at your home have, right? And so basically a VPN, it's called virtual private network. It adds security to the traffic at your home. And so you definitely want to consider that. I personally have VPN on all of my devices, so even when I'm out in the coffee shop, folks can't just like see what I'm doing, whether it's an automated attack or otherwise. So this helps you to protect your home network. So even when you're not working, now you have some protection. So you can even enable this at your router level if you decide to do so. But in the very least, protect the traffic for your work PC. Check with your work. Maybe they already have a VPN that you should be using or that they prefer. They might already have some sort of configuration, and they'll just send you directions on how to connect with it. And to that end, they might even help you do it. So you might be able to get some time with one of your technical people on your IT team. If you need to get your own, and I do suggest doing that, for your own benefit. There are plenty of providers out there. Again, these are not endorsements, just a few that come up with as far as being popular options out there. ExpressVPN is one, NordVPN is another one, PureVPN, I happen to be using that one myself, and then Nord Secure VPN. So a virtual private phone number. Avoid giving out your cell phone number at all costs. This is, again, to protect yourself. You do not, the moment you start giving out your cell phone number, all of a sudden you become a round-the-clock worker, and I definitely don't want that for anyone, whether it's, myself, people, my friends, my clients, anybody else. Your home time should be your home time. When you stop working, you should not be working. You need to live life, especially today. So avoid giving out your cell phone number. Get a virtual phone number of some kind. Right? And so whether it's a work phone that you can get from your work, or you can get a virtual phone number for your cell phone or your home itself, you want to look into that. Some options include Call HIPAA. That's a commercial service. There's also Google Voice, so that's been a popular option for years. I used to have a Google Voice number. There's Mighty Call. I kind of wanted to put that on there because those of you that know me, there's a little inside joke there, kind of. And then there's WhatsApp, so that's another option as well. So whatever it is, you can get a virtual phone number. There's plenty of other options out there, especially commercial options. So make sure that you avoid giving out your cell phone number at all costs. You need to protect your time. Now, some bonus tips. Protect yourself, and that's about what all this is. Protect yourself from everybody else, protect your family, protect your time. You want to be able to make sure you're productive when you're working, and you want to make sure you're not working when you're not working, right? And so protect yourself at all costs. You want to make sure that you're not an around-the-clock worker. Your boss should have the same concern as well. But one of the ways you can ensure that is by over-communicating with everyone. So making sure whether you're still using email, and there's nothing wrong with email, but whatever these channels are, you over-communicate. Hey, I just got this done. Check. Got this checked off. Hey, let's do a chat real quick. Make sure we're over on the same page. Let's do, it's first thing in the morning. Why don't we just do a quick, kind of call, like how's everybody doing? Maybe we end the day with that too. Whatever the thing is that you find for your company and your team makes you a more productive team, go ahead and do that. We don't need to be micromanagers, but it's great to over communicate. Make sure everybody's talking to each other. When you're in separate parts of the world or the separate parts of the city and you can't see each other, this is just a fantastic way to ensure a great working environment. And update or upgrade your router. This might be a perfect time to do that. Most people at their home, you buy your router, you set it up, and it just works. And some people, some of us, we're just really afraid to touch it. It already works. But this is a fantastic time for both the performance of your internet connection as well as the security of your environment to, maybe you need to replace your router entirely, you need to upgrade it, but in the very least, check to see if it needs to be updated. And if you don't know how to do that, get somebody on the phone that can help you with it. Your work probably will, but you probably have somebody who can get on the phone with you, or some sort, maybe you're doing some FaceTime or something, and they can help you do this as well. This is a fantastic time to do that for, again, protecting yourself. So in summary, make sure you have a dedicated workspace if you can. We don't all have that extra room or what have you, but a dedicated workspace is key. So it might be a corner of your bedroom, or it might be maybe the dining room turns into work during this time. Whatever it is, try to have a dedicated workspace. Make sure you take breaks. That's one of the most important takeaways you should have from this little video. Just make sure you're taking care of yourself, you're getting some air, you're recharging, you're resetting. Make sure you have a routine. Now, those breaks should be part of it, of course, but whatever your routine is, have one, stick to it, adjust it as you find you need to. But have a routine so that way every day you know what you need to get done and you know how you can do it. And get your software settled. So we gave you a bunch of options. This is by no means a full inclusive list of everything that you could do, but make sure you get your software situation settled, and then part of that is maybe track your time, and then make sure you review it. It might be at the end of the day. How much time did I spend today? How much time did I spend on these various things? So make sure you create specific tasks and categories so you can be able to see exactly what you're doing and how much time you're spending on those things. And then use a virtual phone number. So make sure you get that Google Voice or what have you, so that way you don't become an around-the-clock worker. You don't want to be that person who, every time something happens, well, I know Sue or Johnny will pick up even though it's 10 p.m. Don't try not to be that person. You want to make sure that you protect you. Be secure, with a VPN and updating your router and everything else. Make sure you, as much as possible, you're protecting your computers and your home internet connection and your home appliances and devices as much as possible. So get a VPN, run Windows updates and all your other software updates. Updating your software is the #1 way you can protect yourself. And then if you need it, find help, get help. There's all kinds of folks that can do it virtually with you, or you might know people who are technically inclined, or more so than you maybe. Whatever it is, might be your work. Make sure you get help if you need it. And hopefully these tips have been helpful for you. And stay safe. Make sure you wash your hands. So make it fun. Keep on the cameras, and if you need anything, just let us know or let somebody else know. Hopefully this is helpful. And again, stay safe. Bye.